In these ever-changing times, up and reskilling is very important. According to Learning Bank's Learning Trends Report 2020, 42.3% states that this is their priority. There are many reasons why upskilling and reskilling is important. One of the reasons is that automation of jobs removes certain positions. And because of this, reskilling and upskilling is important to keep knowledge and in-house know-how within the organization. It can seem stressful to learn something new, especially when you at the corner of your eye see all your work piling up in a stack. And that's where microlearning can be a great help. Microlearning can fit a tight schedule both for reskilling and upskill purposes. With microlearning, you can learn something new over a stretched period of time while still focusing on your daily work tasks. This means that you'll be able to do your daily tasks while also learning something new and eliminating the stress factor. But wait, what is microlearning? Microlearning is a strategy where you split the learning into smaller bites, and typically they're no longer than 3 to 5 minutes. It is important to make the learning short and concise in order to make it engaging. An example could be a short quiz with a couple of questions and answers to keep the learning engaging for the learners. I have a few microlearning tips for you today. Tip number 1. All your microlearning has to be available on all devices today. This means it needs to be available on your phone, on a tablet, and on laptops. In today's world, everything needs to be mobile friendly. Tip number 2. Remember to keep your content short. It has to be concise and focused in order to keep it engaging and motivating. So don't create content that is more than 1 to 5 minutes long. Tip number 3. Select the right format for your learning. Not all formats work for microlearning. So remember, don't fall into the trap of text-heavy content. Tip number 4. Don't let the quality of your content slip just because it's short. Your content still needs to be deliberate and of high quality so that you ensure that your employees actually learn something new. Tip number 5, make the learning relevant. One size rarely fits all. And with microlearning and the right platform, you have the opportunity to create personalized content for each individual in order to give them what they need to be successful and effective in their job. Microlearning is brilliant for many different learning contexts, but it shouldn't be seen as the sole option. It should rather be seen as a great add-on in, for example, blended learning context. Blended learning uses 2 or more training methods combined to achieve the desired learning outcome. In short, blended learning is where you mix different learning activities such as digital activities, social activities, and real-life activities. And of course, this is where microlearning comes in. Blended learning is considered to be a particularly effective method of reskilling, as it combines the benefits from the traditional learning and the digital learning. This could be very useful in a reskilling scenario where more complex concepts will be explained by an instructor in real life, and more general learnings can be learned through microlearning. If you're just starting out, here are 5 steps on how you can get started with blended learning. Step number 1, consider your goals. By defining your goals, you're more likely to achieve success with your blended learning strategy. Step number 2, identify your learning barriers. One barrier could be technology, like do you have the right tech tools? Step number 3, start small. Use blended learning at a small scale to begin with, and as you get more comfortable with it, you can roll it out at a larger scale. Step number 4, have a plan and stick to it. Map out every step of the process, both in-person and digital activities and assessments. Step number 5, adapt to feedback. The success of your blended learning strategy comes down to the feedback from your learners. Don't force something that isn't working. Earlier I mentioned that you should stretch your microlearning. Well, what did I mean by that? Well, like microlearning, stretched learning is also a learning method. Stretched learning is a way of carefully spreading out learning materials over time. It allows the employee to reflect upon what they've just learned and use it in practice before they move on to the next step. We have a few steps for you if you want stretched learning to be part of your learning strategy in the future. Step number 1, have 1 or maximum 2 learning goals per activity. Too many learning goals overload your employees, and that means that the learning will become ineffective, or that the learning will not happen at all. Step number 2, Make room for reflection after every learning activity. Busy is the new stupid. At least that's what Bill Gates says when he talks about the importance of time. When learning something new, it is very important to have some time to reflect upon what you've learned, to make sure that you really understand it, but also so that you're able to implement it into your everyday life. Step number 3, make it clear where to get support. As the employees has been given time to reflect upon what they've learned, you should make it clear where they can go and ask questions or where they can discuss the new learnings. Step number 4, schedule the learning aligned to the context. Think about your learning topics. Is it comprehensive? Is it urgent? Think about this context. If it's comprehensive, you might need to schedule the learning over a longer period of time. And if it's urgent and easy to grasp, you might need to schedule it for a shorter period. Step number 5, split your learning into smaller pieces. In Japanese organizational philosophy, there's a term called Kaizen. Kaizen focuses on the small steps that you continuously take to become just a little bit better. And that's exactly what stretch learning is. Step number 6, make room for practical usage of the new learning. Stretch learning emphasizes that you need to make room to practice what you just learned. This means that you need to make some room in your learning strategy so that your employees can reflect and also practice on what they've just learned.